The crisp autumn air of October 1997 hung heavy over Dayton, Ohio, carrying the faint scent of fallen leaves and the distant roar of a Friday night football game. For most of the city, it was a ritual, a vibrant pulse in the heart of the community. For 17-year-old Ryan O'Malley, a senior at Northmont High School, it was simply Friday. Ryan was, by all accounts, a typical Dayton kid. Not a star athlete, but a solid member of the JV football team, a reliable presence in the offensive line. He earned decent grades, enough to keep his parents, John and Mary O'Malley, happy and talking about community college options. He worked part-time at the Kroger on Main Street, bagging groceries and stocking shelves, saving up for a beat-up used car and perhaps a slightly nicer one-bedroom apartment eventually. His life revolved around school, football, his girlfriend, Sarah Jenkins, and his tight-knit group of friends, Mike, the jokester, Kevin, the quiet thinker. They were the kind of friends who knew each other's deepest anxieties and shared their biggest dreams over lukewarm sodas at the local Frisch's Big Boy. Ryan's home life was stable, if a little quiet. His younger sister, Emily, 10 years old and prone to dramatic pronouncements, looked up to him, even when they bickered over TV remote control dominance. Mary, his mother, worried constantly, a trait common to mothers everywhere, while John, his father, a foreman at a local manufacturing plant, was the steady anchor, dispensing advice with a gruff tenderness. Dayton in '97 was a city of resilient spirit, a place where people worked hard and lived simply. Its industrial past was still visible, but there was a sense of striving, a quiet pride in its neighborhoods and the close-knit feel of its communities. Friday night under the stadium lights, with the band blaring and the crowd cheering, was a focal point of that community pride. That particular Friday, October 24, 1997, Northmont High was hosting Centerville, a fierce crosstown rival. The stands were packed, a sea of green and gold. Ryan, not starting but ready to go in, felt the familiar adrenaline. He'd seen Sarah in the crowd earlier, her bright smile a fleeting comfort amidst the pregame jitters. After the game, a narrow loss for Northmont, the usual pandemonium ensued. Players shed their pads in the locker room, the air thick with sweat and disappointment. Ryan, tired but content, chatted with Mike and Kevin about a potential party at a friend's house in Inglewood. He told them he was going to quickly grab his backpack from his locker, he'd stashed some homework there earlier, and then meet Sarah outside. They had a loose plan to walk home together, Sarah's house being only a few blocks from the stadium. Mike remembered seeing Ryan heading back into the school building, a worn Northmont jacket slung over his shoulder, his head down. "See you later, man," Mike had called out, but Ryan just offered a quick wave without looking back. That was the last confirmed sighting. Sarah waited for about 20 minutes near the main gate, growing increasingly antsy. She figured Ryan had gotten sidetracked by a coach or another friend. Eventually, cold and frustrated, she called her mom from a payphone and got a ride home, assuming Ryan would just head straight back to his own house. But Ryan didn't go home. Mary O'Malley felt the first prickle of unease around 11:30 p.m. Ryan was usually home by 11 o'clock on game nights, especially after a loss when the post-game activities were usually subdued. By midnight, a cold knot had formed in her stomach. She tried calling Sarah's house, then Mike's, then Kevin's. Each call brought the same answer: no, Ryan wasn't here. No, they hadn't seen him since he went back into the school. John, initially dismissing it as teenager stuff, started making calls of his own, his voice growing steadily more strained. By 2 a.m., the O'Malley house was alight, a beacon of silent panic in the sleeping neighborhood. Emily, roused by the hushed, frantic voices, crept out of her room, sensing the unspoken fear. By dawn, when Ryan still hadn't appeared, the O'Malleys called the Dayton Police Department. The initial response was tempered with routine. "He's 17, Mrs. O'Malley. Teenagers wander off sometimes. He'll probably show up." The words, meant to soothe, felt like a dismissive slap, but as the hours stretched into another night, with no word, no contact, the police took it more seriously. A missing persons report was filed. Ryan O'Malley, last seen wearing his Northmont jacket, a plain gray t-shirt and faded blue jeans, was officially gone. The early days were a blur of frenetic activity. Dayton PD Detective Mark Davies, a seasoned but weary officer, took the lead. He interviewed Sarah, Mike, Kevin, Ryan's teachers, his football coaches. Everyone corroborated the last sighting. Ryan heading back into the school after the game. The school was meticulously searched, every locker, every classroom, every corner of the deserted building. Nothing, no backpack, no jacket, no sign of Ryan. The route between the stadium and his home was canvassed, neighbors questioned. Had anyone seen a young man walking alone? Had anyone seen anything unusual? Most had been inside, watching TV, or asleep. The crisp autumn air seemed to mock the lack of scent for the K-9 units brought in. The community of Dayton rallied with heartbreaking swiftness. Posters bearing Ryan's smiling face, a yearbook photo, slightly out of focus, appeared everywhere. Stapled to telephone poles, taped to gas station windows, tacked onto bulletin boards in every grocery store and diner. Missing. RYN O'Malley, the local news channels WDTN, WHIO, and WKEF ran segments broadcasting the O'Malley's tearful pleas for information. Mary, her eyes red-rimmed and hollow, clutched a photo of Ryan, her voice a raw whisper as she begged for her son to come home. John, trying to project strength, his jaw tight, stood beside her, his hand a constant, comforting presence on her back. Tips trickled in, a torrent of well-meaning but ultimately useless information. A blurry sighting of a young man matching Ryan's description at a convenience store 20 miles away. A call from a psychic claiming visions of a watery grave, quickly dismissed by Davies, who dealt in facts, not fantasies. Each lead was a fleeting flicker of hope, quickly extinguished. The police investigated every angle, a possible runaway, a kidnapping, foul play. Ryan wasn't known to deal drugs, wasn't involved with gangs, he was just a kid. His personal life offered no dark secrets, no hidden enemies. The absence was absolute, baffling. Weeks turned into months. The leaves turned brilliant shades of red and gold, then fell, leaving bare branches against a steel-gray sky. Winter arrived, harsh and unforgiving, coating Dayton in a blanket of snow that seemed to mirror the cold silence surrounding Ryan's disappearance. The initial surge of community support began to wane, not out of malice, but out of the sheer exhausting reality of life moving on. The posters faded in the sun and rain, eventually torn down or covered by new notices. The local news reports became less frequent, replaced by other, newer tragedies. For the O'Malley family, time became an enemy, dragging them further from the last moment they saw Ryan, yet trapping them in an eternal October 1997. Their house, once filled with the cheerful chaos of family life, became a quiet shrine. Ryan's bedroom remained untouched, his clothes still in the closet, his football trophies gathering dust on the shelf, a silent testament to a life paused indefinitely. Mary became gaunt, her spirit eroded by the relentless grief. She spent hours by the phone, convinced it would ring with news, with Ryan's voice. John, ever the practical one, delved into the investigation himself, badgering Detective Davies, spending his life savings on a private investigator who, after months of fruitless work, could only offer condolences and an empty invoice. Emily, Ryan's younger sister, struggled immensely. Her bright, 10-year-old world had been shattered. She grew up under the shadow of a missing brother, her childhood defined by absence. She avoided talking about Ryan, unable to reconcile the boy she knew with the haunting image on the faded posters. She saw the strain on her parents' marriage, the quiet arguments, the profound sadness that permeated every corner of their home. The anniversaries of October 24th became solemn, painful milestones, each one a fresh reminder of the unanswered questions, the unfulfilled hopes. The case went cold officially. Detective Davies moved on to other cases, though Ryan's file remained on his desk, a constant, nagging failure. New detectives periodically reviewed the file, hoping a fresh pair of eyes might see something missed. But there was nothing, no new witnesses, no new physical evidence, just the agonizing silence. Theories abounded in hushed tones in the community. He ran away to California, he got into a car with the wrong person, he's buried in a forgotten field somewhere. Each theory brought a fresh wave of pain to the O'Malleys, who lived in a purgatory of not knowing. 8 years crawled by. 8 years of holidays without Ryan. 8 years of birthday cakes unshared. 8 years of agonizing, relentless waiting. The year was now 2005. The internet was a ubiquitous presence. Cell phones were in nearly every pocket, and the world had moved on, light years from the simpler, more analog days of 1997. But in the O'Malley household, time was a frozen lake, reflecting only the past. Then, on a surprisingly warm spring afternoon in late April 2005, a construction crew was breaking ground for a new commercial park on the outskirts of Fairborn, Ohio, a suburb just east of Dayton. The site was a sprawling, neglected parcel of land, long earmarked for development but left untouched, a wild expanse of scrub brush and overgrown woods near the old Wright-Patterson Air Force Base lands. A bulldozer operator clearing a particularly dense thicket of old growth felt a strange resistance. He brought the machinery to a halt, climbed down, and began to investigate. Beneath a shallow layer of disturbed earth mixed with roots and debris, he saw something unnatural. A piece of fabric, faded but still discernible as a fragment of green and gold, Northmont High's colors, and then bone. The site immediately became a crime scene. Dayton PD, alerted by Fairborn authorities, converged on the area. The forensic team worked meticulously, sifting through the earth, marking every fragment. The remains were skeletal, badly decomposed, and scattered. It was clear they had been there for a long time. The discovery sent a ripple of grim anticipation through the Dayton area, especially among those who remembered the posters and the desperate pleas from 8 years prior. For John and Mary O'Malley, the phone call from Detective Davies, a different Davies, a younger one, but the name still striking a chord of dread, was the call they had both yearned for and feared for nearly a decade. DNA samples taken from the O'Malleys years ago were cross-referenced with the recovered bones. The wait for confirmation was agonizing, a familiar torture. Finally, the news came. The fragments, the faded jacket, the small bone chips, they belonged to Ryan O'Malley. The news hit the O'Malleys like a physical blow, a confirmation of their darkest fears, yet it also brought a strange, painful sense of closure. Ryan was not coming home alive. He hadn't run away. He was dead. The funeral, held on a bright, cruel May morning, was a quiet, sorrowful affair, 8 years too late. His classmates, now in their mid-20s, some with families of their own, came to pay their respects, their faces etched with a profound sadness for the boy who never got to grow up. Emily, now an adult, stood beside her parents, her eyes dry, a silent scream trapped within her. But the discovery, while answering what happened to Ryan, only deepened the mystery of how and who. The condition of the remains made determining a precise cause of death impossible. There were no obvious signs of a struggle on the fragmented bones, no clear bullet wounds or knife marks. The police reopened the case with renewed vigor, now a homicide investigation. They interviewed old witnesses again, hoping that the passage of time or the new discovery might loosen a tongue. They canvassed the Fairborn area, looking for anyone who remembered anything unusual near that undeveloped land in 1997. They considered every possibility. A random act of violence, a robbery gone wrong, a terrible accident covered up. The renewed investigation unearthed no immediate suspects, no smoking gun. The land where Ryan was found was close to a few old, unpaved service roads that were rarely used, a place where someone might dump a body without much notice in the dead of night, nearly a decade prior. The area had been remote, mostly forgotten. It was a cruel irony that it took progress, a new commercial development, to uncover the truth of a forgotten tragedy. For the O'Malleys, the grief was fresh, raw, and now mixed with a burning desire for justice. They had Ryan back in a way, but the why still echoed, unanswered, in the silent halls of their Dayton home. The Northmont jacket, a faded piece of cloth that started a decade-long mystery, had finally led them to their son. But it had brought no peace, only a new, more pointed question. 8 years later, Ryan O'Malley had been found, but his killer remained elusive, a ghost in the annals of Dayton's cold cases. The story of Ryan O'Malley became a stark reminder of the shadows that can linger, unseen, in even the most ordinary of American towns, a testament to the enduring agony of unanswered questions and the chilling reality that sometimes, even after a body is found, the truth remains buried. The case of Ryan O'Malley became yet another haunting, unsolved chapter in Dayton, Ohio's history, a quiet scream lost to the crisp autumn air of 1997.